All right, and we're live. So, Mr. Underdown, or Harold. So, we have had a very long conversation on the phone before we did this interview. And you told me about how you knew, I think was it Chuck Hayes or was it Giblin? You know,
Yeah, I know both those guys.
yeah, we were talking about them, how you met, and you were showing me the photos of you with George Bush and on your website and overall you had a very long awesome career meeting a lot of cool guys that I myself have spoken to and met. Most recently of the people that you met, I think it was Chuck Hayes, and he's super cool. And yeah,
Yeah,
so
you're
tell us a
talking.
little bit about yourself.
Well, you're talking about a career now. Chuck had a long career, and it was a great career. And I was working with him too over the training department, but we had a great time. But about me, I joined the Navy back in 1987, and born and raised. I was born in Gastonia, North Carolina. Grew up about 30 miles south of Charlotte. Um, Graduated high school in 1979, so I'm kind of dating myself. But in high school, if you would say, "Hey, what do you want to do?" Right? Well, I wanted to be a state trooper. North Carolina Highway Patrol. Had a couple of buddies that I knew that was that troopers, and they were kind of mentors to me and stuff. So I was headed in that direction. Got out of high school and went to a local community college and got my 2-year degree, associate applied degree in criminal justice. And at the same time, I was in the National Guard. I joined, me and 3 of my buddies joined the Army National Guard coming out, and while we were in high school, we, recruiters kind of sucked us in. And, since I've been in North Carolina, my, the whole, life to that point, I'm like, hey, I'd like to do some traveling. So this Army National Guard thing would be cool. So we ended up going in the Army National Guard. I did 4 years in that. Then I transferred across the street basically into the Air National Guard. North Carolina Air National Guard had C-130s at the time. So I was on flying status as a flying medic, right? I was a medic in the back of the aircraft. So, but that was fine, right? Because the medic stuff worked out for me, because if I was going to be a state trooper, it'd be nice to have some of those first responder skills, right? So I did that. And I was waiting to go to highway patrol school, kept waiting. They had a lawsuit on North Carolina Highway Patrol at the time, and they had the academy shut down, but it was shut down for quite a while. So during those couple years, after that, I read an article in one of the parade magazines that came in the Sunday paper, and it had a big caption on it. It had a person climbing underneath barbed wire and had a white T-shirt on, had his name stenciled on the front of it, had a real high and tight haircut, right, shaved down. And in the caption, it said, "Are Navy SEALs the toughest men alive?" And I saw that and I go, Navy SEALs. So I read through that article, talking about the training and all of the requirements that it took. But anyway, fast forward about probably 3 months past that, I got really, impatient with North Carolina Highway Patrol and said, "Hey, I'm going to go join the Navy." Right. And I was thinking also about going in the Army and flying helicopters, but they were giving me the runaround. So, we want you to go to Ranger school before you do that. And had a buddy of mine that was an Army Ranger at the time. And he says, "Don't do that, Harold. They'll suck you in and they won't let you go to, they won't let you go to flight school for probably another 2-3 years." So I'm like, "What the heck with that?" So I talked to the Navy recruiter about being a Navy SEAL. And back then, a lot of, people didn't really know about Navy SEALs. I mean, other than the stories they have seen from Vietnam, some of the heroic stuff that the guys were doing in Vietnam, and but it wasn't really, it wasn't sexy. It wasn't like, hey, Navy SEALs, the people that that work in small teams, and it's become a lot more visible for us, I think, which is good and bad, right? And the bad way is OPSEC, of course, operational security. We don't want to be, we don't want people. And the first thing I do, I don't tell people I'm a Navy SEAL. I just go, "Hey, I had a great career in the Navy." And, but it all comes around. They all know, right? So, "Oh yeah, you was a Navy SEAL, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, yeah, I was. I had a great time doing it. And, my son, Jake, the middle son, Jake, he's a SEAL. So SEAL Team 2 right now. And my son, Josh, he's a pilot, right? And then I have a younger son, and then Jared, he's a 911 operator dispatcher, and also a daughter, Chelsea, and Chelsea's 3 years older than Josh. So, and she's married to an Air Force gentleman, and who just got promoted probably about a month or so ago. So everything's looking pretty good. I retired back in 2015, so. And I'm sure we're going to start talking about a little bit more of the, where I was stationed, or, what have I done, or what have I seen, and all that good stuff. But I'll let you kind of run those questions, George. And but I retired in 2015, went into security business, as far as working for a company who provided security for corporate 500 companies, and traveled a whole lot with them. And then now I'm sitting down here in the Bahamas, and I've been down here for 3 years plus, working at a resort down here that was hit pretty hard by Dorian back in 2019, September, and as a Cat 5 hurricane. And so it tore up the property here. So they brought me down to run the workforce to rebuild it, and restoration project and all that stuff. And I've been here, it's been pretty cool. And but I'm going to be going back because, I'm a founder of Four Branches Bourbon. I'm the Navy piece to that, right? We got 4 of us, and so I'm going to be going back home, redeploying back from Bahamas, and I'm going back home to Virginia here really soon, toward the end of the month here, to manage the bourbon up and down the East Coast, and help out west as much as I can too. But so I'll throw it back over on your side and let you get more specific if you want.
Well, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I could go from here, and there's a lot I could definitely ask about. One thing I wanted to talk to you about is definitely your company now and what you're doing now, because we had a very good conversation about purpose, right? As I have basically with every single SEAL here. I don't know why that's the question that came to me when I started. I started with Steven, right? That's when I started with all the Navy SEALs, right? I've had so many different people on my show. I think this is going to be episode 40, at least in terms of like my upload schedule. It's going to be the 40th episode I upload, right? Technically, I've done 41, but that one isn't uploaded yet. But, Steven was the third guy I interviewed, actually. And this was all the way back last year, like late last year. And regardless, when I started asking questions, one of them was, how did you find purpose in life? How does one find purpose in life? That was a very big part of the interview. Now, I don't know why, but then the next Navy SEAL I interviewed, I think it was Will Branham. I asked him same question. So when we had this conversation over the phone, you did talk about how Four Branches has become your purpose in life, and how Navy SEALs, how it's a very, very important endeavor to understand how you find purpose after you become a SEAL. And I started thinking about this too, not only about what you said, but just in general about how, you're put in this position where, right after high school, you have to decide what you want to do with your life, or during high school, even, where you're like, you're not a kid anymore. You're about to become an adult. You kind of understand what you want to do. You know what you like, but you don't really know. And for a lot of people, they go straight into the military. And I've had so many people tell so many different stories of why they joined the military, right? Especially the Navy SEALs. Sometimes it's out of, and the majority of the stories really just come down to the person saying to themselves, hey, this seems like an interesting thing to do with my life. I don't know what else to do, right? Kid from a small town wants to go in and do something kind of cool. And, for a lot of people, the way is just into the military. But for others, they see Navy SEALs as a big one. And that's almost every SEAL that I've interviewed. And to come full circle, I guess, with that, or to come back in, it's when it comes to finding purpose, being a Navy SEAL and joining the military, it's a very quick way to have a sense of purpose, right? Or long term. It's just an overall way of feeling a sense of purpose, right? You're with a group of people that care about you, that'll literally take a bullet for you, fight for you. You have a common goal. You'll compete together, maybe compete against each other. And then all of a sudden you leave this, and now you have to figure out what else do you have to do with your life. So you're nodding your head.
Mhm.
So I feel like I'm right with that. But you found yours through the bourbon company through Four Branches. Tell us a little bit about that and the overall topic.
Yeah, well, when you say find purpose, I kind of, as you were talking, I was kind of reflecting all the way back to high school, and it's kind of, I played football, and played baseball, did a little wrestling, 1 year, and then it was kind of the football thing, right? It's kind of, you gotta go up to the line of scrimmage, you gotta pay attention, attention to details, what to call, the play, and really do your best play after play, right? So that same attitude took me into buds, right? And you get the buds, buds it's about persevering, and basically, as you're going through this course of buds, basic underwater demolition school, um, people start quitting, right? And so your buddy standing next to you at these little, IBS, these little small boats that we carry around on the base. You're sitting there staring at him. You're going, hey, what are you doing? He wouldn't put on his K-pop, right, which is a flotation device that we wear in buds. And I said, hey, put on your flotation, put on your K-pop, put that thing on. And he says, no, I'm cold. I guess I'm cold. It makes me colder when I put it on. I go, well, sure it will, right? But put it on and let's move out. So he didn't do it. He chose to stop what he was doing and said, hey, he's too miserable, wet, sandy, cold. And he said, hey, I said, don't you go ring that bell. Don't go do that. So he went and done that, right? So I was kind of looking at him as kind of, he's about the same age as I was at the time, and I was 25, and I looked at him and said, come on, man, you can't do this. You can't leave me out here by myself, right? I'm hanging by myself. And he just walked away, right? Went over and sat in the back of the little ambulance truck that follows us around. So he was done. So it's like, like back at our question of what gives you purpose? Well, the purpose for me at Buzz was clear. It was going to be, I'm going to finish, right? I'm going to graduate. And if I'm not, they're going to carry me out of here in a body bag, right? So how do you do that? But you don't do it by yourself. Everybody like, well, I did this, I did that. There's no I in team, right? That's what we say that a lot in the SEAL teams. There's no I in team. But at the same time, when you're going through Buzz, I think I shared that story with you before, George, about I was going through drown proofing, and for whatever reason, I kept coming untied, right? So they tie your feet together, they tie your hands behind your back, and they jump in the water, and they teach you how to dolphin, kind of porpoise through the water, breathe. Totally safe, but it freaks you out, right? When people tie your hands together behind your back and they tie your feet together and throw you into a pretty deep pool, right? Because these training tanks are not, they're not 4 feet deep, right? They're 20 feet deep, and the shallow end's about probably 6 feet. So, forget about, bobbing up and down on a deep bottom. But anyway, I didn't make that. I failed at that drown proofing, the iteration, or the whatever we call those, events, right? But what happened though, that rolled me back 6 weeks. So I went from class 151 to 152. But during the weekends, I would come over to the swimming pool on base, and I'd tie myself up and jump in. Well, we had this old gentleman there, and I think he was a old frogman retired guy, but he was working at the pool, and he goes, hey, Harold, you can't do that. And I go, Charlie, I'm just trying to get comfortable here, man. So tie me up, right? Help me tie me. And he goes, I can't help you tie yourself. I go, come on, you got to help me out here. So he started helping. So I'd jump in and get to where I could just flounder around. And I'd get comfortable, right? So that made me comfortable. So I go back into class 152. We get to the drown proofing piece. I pass it with flying colors. I had a lot of confidence right through it. The very next couple of times we were in Hell Week, right? So Hell Week is just 5 days of running around, no sleep. Believe it or not, your body can do it. But as we were there that night on the steel pier, we're laying down doing flutter kicks. One of the instructors goes, Underdown. He said, get up here. And I'm like, oh, good. What does he want? He's the kind of instructor. He's got these mirror sunglasses on, right? Kind of like Cool Hand Luke. And I walk up, and he goes, sit down. And I'm like, I said, I don't want to sit down, instructor such and such. And he goes, I said, sit down. And I'm like, who y'all? So I sat down on the back of this truck, and he says, you want some hot chocolate? I go, no. And he goes, you want a blanket? I go, nope. I said, I want to go back. I want to go back down to the pier. And he goes, you're not going back to the pier, Underdown. He said, just shut up and listen a second. And he's staring off into the deal, and he's smoking a cigar, right? So this is when you get purpose, right? This is when instructors or people in your life gives you that motivation and you know, the mentorship and leadership and stuff. But this was an officer, right? Instructor, but he was looking off into the across the bay, and he turned around and looks at me and he goes, "Do you know Charlie?" And I kind of look up at him and I'm going, "Uh-oh." I said, "Charlie." I said, "No." I said, "No, I don't know Charlie." He says, "You don't know Charlie at the swimming pool?" And I go, I said, "Better not lie, right? Because if I lie, he's going to tell him what he's going to do." So I said, "Yes, sir. I do know Charlie works at the pool." And he goes, "Well, Charlie's my neighbor." And he said, "I've been talking to Charlie, and he's been telling me about this student that comes in here on the weekends and ties himself up and jumps in the pool." And he said that he kind of was coercing me to, Charlie, right? This is Charlie talking to the lieutenant. He goes, "Yeah." He said, this guy was basically telling me I better tie him up, or, he was going to, call somebody or whatever. And he said, but I kept being consistent. And he said he did it. So we've had that relationship, right? Trust, right? But the purpose is, but anyway, that just kind of showed me when the lieutenant's talking to me, these instructors are paying attention. They're paying attention. They do their homework. They watch the students. If they see any type of, that you're going to, they'll break you, right? So it was all about that, right? Now, let's fast forward and I'll jump into this little bit of, so I've been out since 2015. So I get down here to the Bahamas back in 2019. I think I came down right after the storm, so September storm. So December I flew in here on a seaplane and was looking at the property and go, wow, this place is a disaster, right? And I was in Haiti after the earthquake back in 2010. So I had a little bit of skill sets as far as working with multiple agencies, right? NGOs, non-governmental organizations. Well, we had a lot of stuff to do here, and you just had to get her done, right? So I was talking to all these people across the board here. But I met Rick Franco down here. Rick was a security person down here, hired. And then Mike Trott. And both of Rick and Mike both work with Discovery Land Company and worked at Baker's. So Rick was talking about, hey, let's do this bourbon thing. But he wanted to do a barrel, right? Just do one barrel and sell it like on Facebook or whatever. So wait a minute, you can't do that, right? Because there's lots of regulations in the alcohol business, as you can imagine. So instead of doing a barrel, we decided, hey, let's just build a brand. Let's do this. So we had Rick. Rick was a VMI graduate. He's a Marine Corps officer, infantry, and then he went over to the company CIA over, and he was GRS, which is ground security for most of the leadership people that would come in from Washington. And then we had Mike, Mike Trott's Air Force security, right? So here we go, Marine Corps, Air Force. Mike was Air Force security. Then he went over to the company CIA, and he was a executive protection person. So he took care of a lot of people, a lot of important people, and one of them was George Tenet. But anyway, so we got Mike, right? And Mike's our managing partner. But for purpose for me is now I'm into this business now, right? So we've got investors like any other company, and we have a mission, and it's a no-fail mission to make sure that Four Branches bourbon is going to be successful. And it's taken us a long time. It's taken us 3 years to get it to the point where we're at right now, which is liquid in a bottle. We got a really cool diamond bottle. It's got 4 sides because of 4 branches. We have a beautiful logo on the front, black logo, and the 4 really is not just a number. If you look at the base of it, it looks like a grid line you'd see on a map, but it's a knoll. It's a foundation. The Army's the oldest of all services, right? So they're the foundation of our military. And then the centerpiece coming up is like what you see on a Navy mast or a con of a submarine coming up out of the water. And then the horizontal piece coming across looks like a bayonet affixed to an M14 or any other rifle. And then the swoop up is the Air Force. Of course, Air Force provides air cover for all of the main, branches of the military. And then the inside of the 4 has got a black spear, and you can only see half of the spear head. And that is the paying honor to our men and women that are fighting for us today around the globe. And the piece that you don't see that's missing is for our fallen, for those who are no longer with us. And we have a lot of those. We have a lot of in the Navy SEAL community, and a lot just in the military in general across the board. So for me, purpose is for me and with this bourbon, and we have a saying on the top of it is serve honorably and drink honorably. But more importantly to that, our message is like, we don't want you to drink to forget. We have way too many of us doing that, and I've been part of that, right? I have to raise my hand on that. I've drinking to forget or whatever. I don't want to do. You don't want to do that, right? We don't want to drink to completion. Here we want you to sip to remember, and a sip to remember someone that may not be with us now, a family member, a friend, a teammate. But also we want you to sip to remember all of the happy occasions and celebrations, right? Weddings, promotions, anything. I mean, sometimes I just sip to remember a Friday. You know, I'm sitting there here in the Bahamas. I'm looking across the bay, and I say, it's a beautiful place to work, right? I'm getting paid to be here and work in logistics and security and safety. So it's kind of a cool deal. So, but purpose is every time we wake up in the morning, we have to have a purpose, right? You've heard about Make Your Bed, Admiral McCraven. Yeah, Admiral McCraven was my XO at SEAL Team 1. But make your bed, right? It seems like a simple task, but make your bed. Feel good about yourself. You know, clean yourself up. Put your uniform on, your clothes on. I still look at my gig line, and I need to lose about 10 pounds, but I work on that too, right? So, but it's all about, hey, you know, you could be in a lot of worse scenarios, right? But just do the best you can do, and take care of people. You know, because when you work with people or you work with the team or how small or, you know, whatever, as long as you take care of your team will take care of you, right? So if you want a letter of, you know, like somebody's asked me to write them a letter of a character letter, right? So that's easy when people's got really good reputations, you know, and that's a part of it too, right? We have to go every day. We have to be truthful. We have to do our jobs to the best of our abilities. And then, of course, you know, help other people as we do that. But I'm hoping, does that sound pretty good, George? I mean, with the bourbon thing, I've definitely got a purpose with this because it's a business, right? And we're gonna make it happen. But it's not easy.
I mean, yeah, I have faith in you, you know, to say the least. You seem like a man with a mission, and I hope it goes well for you, you know, overall. Now, you have a photo gallery, and this is something I wanted to talk to you about on
Yeah.
your website, forbranches.com. Now, this
Mhm.
photo gallery is probably one of the most, I don't know if legendary is the right word, but one of the more cool photo galleries I've seen. Um, and they're just overall crazy photos. So the one that obviously caught my eye and probably will catch a lot of people's eye, it's you and then three guys and then George Bush. And you're looking, I think it's you. You're looking really intense. You're about to explain something to George Bush. Now,
Oh
what were you explaining in the photo?
yeah. That you know, I had my hands out, right, like this. So basically it was a fishing story, right? So G-Dub, you know, 41 and 43 were at the same, you know, they were at Kenny Buckport, Maine. And the reason are that, you know, at that time, you know, President George W. was going up to see his dad. He'd always go up there during the summers and they'd go fishing. And 41, you know, George H., he had a really fast boat. He had a Reggie Fountain, you know, go fast, about a 42 footer, I think. And it had he had 4 outboard motors, big Mercuries on the back of it. And it was like really fast. So, you know, we'd go out there and we would be the security on the water for him and all that stuff. And I won't get into all of that because that's definitely a little OPSEC. But the day that you saw that picture with G-Dub, right, was basically the guys that were up there doing that, you know, a little bit of a detail. But I was talking about a fish story, and he was like, "Well, yeah, you know, I caught a fish yesterday." I said, well, how big? How big? It was this big. And he says, no, let's don't get into the. He said he was throwing it out to here, right? He says, you know the deal. He said, as soon as you see your hands out there, and he said it was a nice fish, but he said I'm not going to totally give you how tall. And I said, was it 6 foot? And he goes, no, it wasn't 6 foot tall, but or long. But yeah, that was the story. But we were just talking. He just came over, right? The president of the United States came over and he shook our hands and he told us that he really appreciated us being up there. And you know, you don't get that close, right? You don't get, many people don't get that close to the president of the United States for good reason. But he was a great person. He was awesome to talk to, and it was a cool experience.
Right. So it's kind of funny because you know Conor McGregor.
Yep, I've seen his Netflix.
Right. So well, he's a UFC fighter. All right, Conor McGregor, and he
Oh yeah,
it was funny. There's a video of him. He's with Vladimir Putin, right, president of Russia, and you know he goes in to take a photo with him, and he puts his arm around him, right, like it's anybody else. And then I think a guy behind him, who I would assume to be Vladimir Putin's security, like taps him on the shoulder and is like, "Don't do that," you know.
right.
And then Conor McGregor's like, "Oh, okay, sorry." And then he puts his hands he puts his hands down for the photo. But it was funny though, because like you know everybody in the video that saw it, they're like, you know, this is the day that Conor McGregor almost lost his life, you know.
Exactly. Yep. Somebody's going to grab his arm and dislocate his arm there for for touching Putin. Yeah, that'd be a touchy situation.
Yeah, no, but it was funny. So to your point about people not being able to get that close to president, you know, it's true for every country that you go to, or for most at the very least, you know. But when you say you couldn't get that close, did you get to like take a personal photo with him, or was it just that one photo?
We had a lot of photos of us as a small team up there running around, and but that photo was taken. You don't really pull out your iPhone or whatever and do a happy snap with the president. He had his own people were there with cameras, so he had a presidential photographer, and they were really good. Because I'm like, we probably won't see those. Within a week or so, I had a nice envelope in the mail, and it was all those pictures, and they're all signed, right, by the president, which is really cool. I still have that at the house. That same picture you're talking about with me, doing the fish measurement. But yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, why can't you take a selfie with the president? Is there anything wrong with that?
It's kind of for us anyway. We were kind of like in the circle, right? So you don't, working with the Secret Service and saying, hey, don't be staring at the president, because we're not paid to stare at him. We're paid for staring away from him, right, to make sure everything's safe for him as he's doing his business. So, and with that being said, you just can't, And I remember after saying that, I remember I was standing in a boat, because we would go over in a smaller, this was kind of like a RIB, rubber inflatable boat. It's about 40 foot long. And that was a boat that we would chase around. But anyway, the president was coming down the steps of the pier to jump into our boat so we could take him and his father out to the fishing boat, which was moored in the middle of a cove, right? So we'd take them out there. But I could tell, and it's all of a sudden I got bumped in the back, right? So I'm thinking, well, I don't know who that was that bumped me in the back, but I'm just kind of standing here, right? And I was looking away, right? I was looking outside of the president, because the president was, I was thinking he was probably right behind me, and he was, and he kept poking at me, right? Kept poking me in the back. And I just kind of like, I went, hey, what's the problem, right? And I didn't turn around. I just said, hey, what's the problem? And he, George W. goes, hey, he said, hey, it's me. He says, turn around. And I'm like, seriously? And I'm thinking, seriously? So I kind of slowly turned my head around, and he says, hey, that's okay. He says, okay. He said, I just want to say thanks. And he says, hey, what you got in that box? And we had a couple weapons or whatever in a Pelican case, right? A big old case. He said, what you got in that box? And I go, I said, a duck gun. So he started laughing. So he liked the humor about it, right? But it was kind of cool. But you really don't, and I felt bad about turning around, but he's poking me in the back, right? He's like, hey, turn around. And I'm like, turn around. And So then he starts asking, "Hey, he said, you're not with them, are you?" And I'm thinking, "What? Not with them?" And he goes, "You're not one of them, are you?" And I'm looking like, "What do you mean?" And he points at the boat driver, right, the Secret Service guy. And I go, "No, sir." And he goes, "I knew it." He said, "What's those in the boxes?" And I go, "I can't, you know." So it's duck gun. But he was fun. He was fun, and he was having a good time, you know, out there away from the White House. He was getting to fish, so it was kind of cool. Cool.
Yeah, I had on Secret Service guy actually. I don't remember I think his name was Robert. He worked for the Secret Service, and I mean he was cool, but he was Bill Clinton's bodyguard, right, for most of his career. He also did Jimmy Carter and I think a few other presidents, but main guy was Bill Clinton. And it's kind of funny because he even said he's like, the whole time that he was his bodyguard for how many years, he probably only spoke to him at most a time each time for like 5 minutes each. Right, at absolute most, if he was lucky. Every other time was like a minute here or there, just like, hey, how's everything? Good morning, all right, bye, that sort of thing. And then he would drive him everywhere. But it's an interesting job though, having to or getting to basically listen to a world leaders, every bit of their life for however long, 24 hours a day. And you're just supposed to basically be a fly on the wall. You're supposed to just observe, you never reveal. And it's interesting. I mean, it's not a job I would take by any means, but it is interesting. And what's also interesting is when Navy SEALs, right, people that are not Secret Service, are asked to protect the president, because their perspective is far different from the Secret Service. They're less of flies on the wall. And to his point, how did he know that you were actually a Navy SEAL as compared to a Secret Serviceman?
Well, we were trying to blend in the best we could. So we had civilian attire on, right? We had khaki pants and polo shirts, and we was wearing a regular kind of a neck collar, life vest. So we look pretty, other than the Secret Service guys. I mean, they just had polo shirts on too, so they were very civilian looking, right? So, but I just think he knows that crew, right? That crew's with him all the time. So when he saw me, with a short haircut and all of that stuff, he pretty much assumed it because he knew we were there, right? He gets briefed every day on who's out supporting him or the detail. It's right. And but yeah, he knew right away. He said, "Yeah, I wasn't a part of his Secret Service close in guys."
What one thing I actually found interesting about George Bush, like Sarah Adams, I had on. She's the head of the Benghazi investigation, former CIA officer, analyst, whatever. And I was talking to her about presidential briefings, right? One thing she said about George Bush, that he was always around intelligence officers, CIA guys, whatever. I don't know if you can share,
Mhm.
but was that true? Where there's like a lot like more intelligence, because he always liked intelligence with him. That's what she said, that every president has different methods of dealing with their intelligence, their
Mhm.
briefings and stuff. Some are more visual, some like it on a tablet. Like Obama liked his on a tablet. Trump liked his, in photos and diagrams. Former military guys, they love the diagrams. That's how they like their
Mhm.
intelligence briefings. Bush,
Yep.
I think he just loved having it all the time around him. He was always briefed about every issue, especially in intelligence. Then again, he was 9/11, so that also makes sense. But in your experience, would you say that's true, or?
Well, I think it's true because of the president of the United States definitely has to have his finger on the pulse, because he's going to have to make a decision. He or she is going to have to make a decision to send our military, our personnel in harm's way, right? So we're in harm's way most of the time anyway when we deploy to halfway across the world, right? So, but when he has to sign off on an execution of a mission, he's putting everybody's lives is, we're walking into, and that's the best intel we have, right? We're relying on intel to put us on target so we can be successful. Just think about what the president has to do. I mean, and it doesn't matter what time of day. You could be asleep or whatever, and they wake you up and go, "Look, we have a mission that is time critical, right? Time sensitive. We have to have a yes or no right now." So he has to make a decision in a split second, right? So, but if he has no intel and say, "Hey, where are these guys going? Where's these Army Special Forces guys or Navy SEAL, where are they going? What part of the world are they in, and what are we getting? What am I signing myself? What am I signing into here, right? So I think presidents, and in the military, we're apolitical, right? Apolitical. It doesn't matter who's in the White House. We're going to execute our mission to our fullest, abilities. And it's just the president, whoever's sitting in that seat, well, they better have intel. They better be kind of intel driven, right, to make sure they understand what's going on in the world, because when their phone rings, hey, who knows, right? How much pressure is on that individual to have to make a say of, hey, we're getting ready to send in, say 200 people, right? 200 people on a mission. Those are 200 families, right? 200 families that he may have to call, right? And he may have to write a letter. He may have to actually see them in person. So with that being said, I think intel is very important. Is it 100% all the time? No, but you need it, right? You have to have it, right, for us to be able to execute. So
one thing, when it comes to also protecting the president, I've never asked about this, but it just came to my head. Journalists and paparazzi, or whatever you like to call the term. Paparazzi would be more like a celebrity term, but same idea. People that want to go in and take a photo of the president doing any damn thing he does. So was part of your security at all trying to manage those types of people that were just trying to get any little photo of George Bush that they could get?
No, because we were fortunate, because most of the time we would start our day at the waters, at the pier, right? So we wouldn't see a lot of civilian looky looks, right? I mean, they wasn't coming out. Had a golf course there, right? But when they're golf course, when they're on land, it's different, right? And I'm sure what you just asked about, because people have these crazy zoom lenses now with cameras, right? They can be across an island and taking pictures of you, right? They do that here at Baker's Bay, where I work, right? I mean, we have movie stars come here all the time, and you have boats floating out here in the waters right off the island here, and they're taking pictures of these movie stars or these athletes, right, that come over here, right? Everybody wants pictures, and from a security standpoint, here we can't do anything about it, right? I can't, send a boat out there and tell the people, hey, put your cameras up, because we're watching you through binos here. We see that you're taking photos, and for whatever reason, please don't do that. But you can't not let them do what they do. At a certain point, though, as far as when they start to get really close, where we think that drones, especially, right? Drones are kind of crazy nowadays, because they can carry a little bit of a payload, and you don't want that anywhere close to a president, right? So yeah, that's it's a tough job. I mean, Secret Service, right? Secret Service, or they give their lives for the person they're protecting. So
yeah, and I mean, their whole job is to take a bullet for somebody else, right? And it's not really so much of fighting for something so much as it is preventing something, right? And that's a very different perspective than most law enforcement, because technically they are also law enforcement. They do work in counterfeit money, but that's a much lesser known part of their job. A lot more people are fascinated, so is myself, by the fact that they're protecting the president. And it is fun, though, getting to hear the stories about the habits of different presidents. Nothing crazy, nothing scandalous, but like Obama, for example. One thing I heard about him was he would, they would set up a meeting time, because every president has a schedule for what they're going to do in the day. And he would blow past, they would have to fill in entire spaces of just empty space, because they would expect him, because he would always, if he was in a meeting, it would go for an extra hour. All right. Because he would get lost in talking to the person, which there's nothing wrong with, but it does become a problem when you're extending entire meetings by an hour, and, they would have to have all this empty space just for him to, travel out. And it's funny, it's nothing bad. It's just very funny. But
probably stressful to the people that are running your schedule, right? Because you have the notepad, and you're like, hey, Mr. President, we're supposed to be here at this point in time, and he's just like, hey, we'll get there when we get there, right? But for us, it's all timelines, right? So I'm sure that's going to be stressful when you're when you're in charge of that timeline for that day or the schedule for that day, right? And it doesn't go well.
Right. So now I want to move on to more specifics, right? General concepts, less about the events and more about the ideas. So when it comes to advice you would want to give to young people, what would that be?
Oh man, I would say focus on your education. Focus on your education. Uh, less, especially nowadays. I would say encourage people to put your phones down a little more. Don't get wrapped around the axle about what everybody's saying on social media. If they don't like your picture, if they think your teeth are crooked, or you know your ears are too big, maybe. All of that kind of stuff is just bringing us down. It's just bringing young people down to the point where I think it's going to affect them as they try to choose what profession, what profession you want to do. Not everybody. I think we have a pretty good law going on now as far as recruiting in the military. We don't, for whatever reason, we're not meeting our numbers, right? The Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps. And believe me, I've been talking about 4 branches and all this stuff in the military. And by no means are we excluding Coast Guard. The Coast Guard from being a part of our tribe and our 4 branches reach. Because we love the Coast Guard, and also with Space Force. But Space Force is, for me, I think it's just it's Air Force, right? So we got you covered down. But yeah, if I would have to give advice, I say focus on your education, focus on doing other skills, like carpentry, being a welder, able to change your oil on your car or change your tire. How many people out there you think could change a tire if they had a flat on the road? How many people you think could do that?
Not
If you had
many.
5 friends, George, how many out of the 5 friends you have, how many of those could actually find the spare tire in the back of the car? Right?
I could probably actually you asked the wrong person here, because my closest friend is a car guy.
Okay.
And
So is he like a mechanic, or is he just like cars?
both. He can do anything, but he spends hours and hours and hours every single day on his car. So he would know what to do in like 0.2 seconds, worst case. I have a pretty good sense of what I'm doing. I've never done it myself, but worst case, I probably could figure something out, trial and
Yeah.
error. But yeah,
Yeah.
with him though, yes, he could probably do so. And also, I know other car guys, and I am friends with some of them. So, you are asking the wrong person, but in terms of general population, probably not many people.
But there's been a big discussion too around the point of, does a 4-year degree really matter, right? Does a 4-year degree, is that going to really set you up for success? I would say yes, because I think you're basically pouring a foundation, right? You have to start, whether or not if you think you're going to be a banker, or you want to be a house builder, you want to be a commercial, badass carpenter, right? That can act, or engineer, and all of that kind of stuff. It takes a lot of, math, right? Math and, chemistry. I wasn't a big fan of chemistry, but look, just to do anything. Education is a foundational piece to a lot of stuff. And I say, if you don't want to go to college, go to a school that can teach you a trade. Whether it's welding school, or if you want to be a pilot, go to pilot school. All these other avenues out there, right? And people say, well, follow your passion. Well, what's your passion? What how if you would have to write a sentence down about passion, what would that be? How would you write that? Well, I'd really like to hang out. I don't know. Well, my passion, I'd like to hang out in Montana and shoot sporting clay all day. I could do that all day, right? Or drive a race car. That'd be kind of cool, right? Get in a Formula One on an empty track, though. Right? I don't want other cars around. Just the empty track. Just let me see how fast I can get that thing going, right? So that's the kind of stuff. But your passion is, for me, it was the military, right? I mean, I persevered for had a long career in the Navy, um, and really enjoyed it. Enjoyed my traveling. Vice that if I would have been a state trooper, I'd have been in North Carolina. I'd have been probably in 3 or 4 counties. They transfer me around through your career, but still, I'm not leaving North Carolina except when I go on vacation, right? Then I'd go to the beach or something. But as you look back, I mean, it's good to be able to look back and reflect. But yeah, did I answer your question as far as?
Yeah. Yeah. Now my next question would be, if you had the chance to do it all again, would you?
Yes. Yep. Heartbeat. I mean, I've been in, every time I see a motivated video or all the stuff, say, yeah, I can do that. I'd like to do that again. Right. But I didn't leave anything on the field. Right. So when I got out, I was a master chief for my last 12 years in service, met a lot of great people. And it's been the same when I got out, right? Got in the civilian side of it. It's the same, civilian companies. For those who are out there listening to this, as far as if you're in the military active duty now, don't underestimate your value to companies. And just they really thrive on a few of our skills, which is management. We manage people. We're very on time. We're problem solvers naturally. So those are the kind of things that civilian world is going to eat you up for. Because I felt the same thing when I went into the civilian world. I go, well, I don't know what kind of job am I going to have, and blah blah blah. And it turned out great. So it's a continuation, right? And for our people that we still lose, the suicide thing, and I've got friends that's done this, and it's not good. It's not a good thing. Unfortunately, they're not communicating to people right beside them, their family members and their best friends. They don't call you before they do this and go, hey, could you help me? Do you have the miracle answer here I'm looking for? No. So we need to be attuned to that when we have people in our lives that are not doing. We need to be able to help them, right? If they're going through depression or whatever it is. But yeah, I think I got off on a rabbit hole, didn't I, George?
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah. I prefer my guests to talk, I like them to get it all out, and also, you're not even the longest talker. I always tell the story, not to embarrass the guy, but he did a funny as hell thing. So this guy, former Navy SEAL sniper I had on the show, Jordan Petrovic is his name.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked him one question, same question I ask everybody else. For the audience that doesn't know you, please introduce yourself. I don't know if I asked it this time, I usually do it, but I ask him, like, for the audience that doesn't know you, please introduce yourself. Guy goes on for about 35 minutes, right? Explaining every detail of his life and everything in between. And after I think it was like the 10, 15-minute mark, I'm like, how long has this guy been talking for? I'm like checking my watch. And I'm like, this guy's been going on for 10 minutes already? I'm like, okay, I'll let him keep talking. 20 minutes goes by. I'm like, all right. 30 minutes, then 31 minutes. Then I think he stopped. But that guy still sticks with me because I remember I had friends that watch my videos. They came up to me. They're like, George, how long did that guy talk for? What did you say to him? And I'm like, I don't know. I asked him, introduce yourself. 30 minutes. Funny guy. I even had his wife on the show. She's a DJ. And yeah, no, I told her about that. She started laughing too. She's like, yeah, he does that all the time. But yeah, no, that was so if you're ever concerned, if you're talking too much, as long as you did not do what he did, I don't care. But no, that was funny. That was a funny experience. But when it comes to things that you would recommend people to do, right? Like just advice in general, but a little bit more specific. Like what would you recommend people do in terms of like a taking action circumstance, right?
Taking action. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it all goes back to, I think we all have a little work to do, right? Inside ourselves. And for me, I'm a Christian, right? I go to London Bridge Baptist Church back in Virginia when I'm home. Unfortunately, I've been in Bahamas for a while, but I think it's the waking up and you got to go, right? You have to move, right? And I think Toby Keith he wrote a song right before he died. He wrote a song that was he wrote the song after talking to Clint Eastwood, and he asked Clint Eastwood, you know, what gets you up in the morning? What gets you up? What gets you moving? And Clint basically said it, right? He said you have to get up in the morning, right? And he probably said you have to make your bed as well. But also what he said was, which is I don't let the old man in, which is saying that he knows he's a older gentleman, right? But he doesn't let that old figuratively person in to his mind and his um, you know ability to go and have a great day and still be productive. And I don't even know how old Clint is now, but he's up in his 80s, I'm sure, right? Or I don't know if he's 90, but he's still going right along, right? So I would say, and like I said, before anybody advice, I kind of look in the mirror, right? And for me, I need to lose some weight and I need to get back to a more rigid schedule because I do better on a rigid schedule, which is wake up to go work out, right? I did that my whole career. Get up, go work out, and then get behind the desk and then, get going, right? And then from there, you just have other, things that you're focused on, whether it's your professional life or your network, right? Of people and organizations that you try to uh, be a part of. And I think that's good, but it's and God didn't make us to be on an island, right? He didn't make us to be alone by ourselves, right? So I think having family members and friends, and not being more, instead of being inverted, be more of a outwardly person that you, because you have to accept a lot of stuff, right? People change, right? They're all the next generation, right? So I think we had great people way back and we got great people right now, right? And it's crazy because we got civilians now going in space, so alongside NASA. So it's it's crazy. It's a lot of potential out there, but I really think wake up with a good attitude, take care of yourself. Health is big. Every time I talk to my mom, she goes, you taking care of yourself? And I go, yes, Mom, I'm trying to do the best I can with that, right? But really, do we do that, right? Do you try to eat the right stuff? Kind of, moderation is key, right? Everything's good in moderation. But and then just, don't get wrapped around the axle about working all the time and trying to be the number one student all the time, because like for us in the military, we carry backpacks, right? Rucksacks. And every time you take on a new project or whatever, you put let's say you put a 8-pound rock in your backpack. But you got to remember, you already got 8-pound rocks in your backpack because you have your job, you got your family, you got all of these other aspects of life that are stored away in your backpack, and you're walking along the road, right? And for longevity purposes, we have to take care of our health and stuff. So it's good to take a knee every now and then. I love that's an Army Ranger term. Take a knee, face out, and drink canteen water, right? It's what the Army Rangers, Special Forces say. Take a knee, face out, drink canteen water. Take a break. Just take a break. Walk away from your laptop or computer. Just walk away. Go talk to somebody instead of emailing them. If you're not getting the right answer you're looking for, or you don't know why they're not answering it, go pay a visit to them and see. Go eye to eye with them and talk to them. Maybe their dog died or something, right? You never know. what happens in a day. But and I think we need to get back to that. I think we need to get back to more people solving, problems instead of being afraid to get around anybody. Right. So, yeah.
All right. Do you want to share about a little bit of your faith? Because we talked a little bit about this on the phone, about, we would talk a little bit on the podcast about it. I'm a Christian, so
Yeah.
are you. So, how has your faith helped you in your life?
Well, I was baptized back when I was like 12, and I was at a Bible camp up in the mountains of North Carolina, and I remember it like it was yesterday. But I think when you open a door, because God is there, Jesus is there knocking on a door, so it's up to us to open a door, right? You can feel it, right, when he's doing that. He's knocking on a door, so you open that door, and then he's there, right? He's always got you. He's with you, right? If you believe, he was risen and he went to heaven, right? And that's the promise to us. If we repent, we go to heaven, right? Sometimes it's difficult, to talk to people about religion, right? But hey, don't shun God and Jesus, right? Because if you do, you may not get to walk into that beautiful golden gate, right? Because you don't want to say, well, I remember you had an opportunity to share some about me, but you didn't, right? You were, embarrassed or whatever the case may be. You just chose not to do that. I don't, right? Every time opportunities, I feel that I need to, talk about that. I do. So, and that's, hey, it's everybody's personal life. That's your personal choice you have to make. And then we're responsible for that relationship that happens or the lack of, right? If we chase the world too much, right? All this bling bling stuff, right? So yeah, that's my religion.
All right.
And that helps drive too, right? That helps drive, right? Because I've had prayers answered, and sometimes they answer very quickly, sometimes they don't, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I share personal experiences like that. Not gonna tell the full stories, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Every prayer is answered, but
in time.
sometimes, yes, in time, and it's never a no. Sometimes it's just a hey, here's something better instead. And that happens all the time too. Part of that was the podcast. So
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
know what, I get to talk to cool guys like you all the time. So
That's
all right,
pretty cool. Pretty cool.
yeah,
So,
man. Yeah, I like it. That's my passion. But all right. I think this is a good place to end off. Any final words to the audience before we talk after the show for a little bit?
hey, just be positive. I still feel strongly that the United States of America is the greatest country in the world. Can we improve? Yes. But I've been all over the world, and this United States is it's beautiful. It's a beautiful place. But there's other beautiful places in the world as well, right? They're beautiful countries. But yeah, just remember, make your bed, have a good attitude, take care of yourself, healthy wise, right? Eat the right foods, easier said than done. I know that. I just had some carrot cake last night. So, but I wish everybody out there the best and Godspeed.
You too. All right. I'm going to stop recording and now talk a little bit after the show.